let's keep talking about Angel City. We got to break down the roster a bit here and go ahead and talk about the personnel that's available for this team in the build up to the regular season. We talked a little bit about the offseason grade that we gave Angel City, and we stuck with a C plus. And part of it maybe was taking a look at how they also navigated the draft. And while they made headlines selecting Alyssa Thompson, a young top prospect, we also were like, they have some needs perhaps at the goalkeeping position, and we saw them go ahead and target that area as well. So in terms of their defenders and goalkeepers, let's start with that right now, because everybody knows at this point that here on A3, we love to talk about defense and defenders. So with goalkeepers, we see Angelina Anderson out of the draft, Didi Herrera and Brittany Eisenhower for the three goalkeepers on this roster. Defenders, they've got a couple non-roster invitees. That includes Kelsey Hill and Rachel Diodati. Vanessa Giles is on loan. We'll talk about that a little bit. I think folks still have some question marks around what that's going to mean for Angel City. But Sarah Gordon, we chatted a bit about. Madison Hammond, Mary Mathias, obviously Paige Nielsen is returning. Megan Reed's returning. Ellie Riley. Allison Schwebe is also another player on loan. Giselle Thompson, sister of Alyssa Thompson, has participated with Angel City as a U18 trialist. And Mavi Gnola as well, rounding out the defenders here. When we're looking between the goalkeepers and defenders, whether it's players who are listed as non-roster invitees, a couple of the players who are listed on loan, what stands out for you here in this sort of core of defensive players?
I mean, I think it's really crucial that Didi Herrera is back with Angel City. Very consistent between the sticks for the LA team last year. And across their back line, although losing Tyler Lucy, they've still got a Paige Nielsen, a Megan Reed, and Allie Riley, players that were name stays in that back line. And I think we'll see Merritt Mathias slot in pretty directly into that list. I mean, Sarah Gordon too, like I think there poses some questions there, because you look at players like Paige Nielsen and Megan Reed, a player that I just loved watching her evolution last year, because this player came pretty much out of the woodwork, right? She wasn't playing soccer anymore, and she came to this team. She tried out last year for Angel City, and she became a starter, playing significant minutes for Angel City in 2022. And she was really fun to watch. So I think that it's really good that they're returning a lot of their consistent defenders for this Angel City side. That's only going to help them grow throughout this year. But there are a lot of defenders listed, 12 right now. And I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot for a position that you just don't rotate as frequently on any team, let alone on this team. But I think some of the other players, right, like as we kind of build up this roster, when you look at the midfield group for Angel City, Taylor Almer, who is a non-roster invite, that's a name that a lot of people would know from Washington Spirit. This is a player that's looking to get on this Angel City team. Katie Johnson, Clarice Lebeon, Savannah McCaskill, Molly McLaughlin, Lily Nabet, Mackenzie Pluck, Domi Richardson, and Danny Weatherholt. I think a lot of familiar names in that list as well. And then forward group, Simone Charlie, who was a big part of this team last year, coming in off the bench, Claire Emsley, June Endo, Sydney LaRue, Mia Ministrea, Kristen Press, Jasmine Spencer, and Alyssa Thompson. Any names specifically stand out to you? Who do you think will be big impact players there?
We were lucky to go to Angel City twice on tour with Attacking Third. And I feel like each time when we exited those two matches, we were talking about June Endo. This was a player I think that they signed over the offseason of their inaugural season. And I think folks who maybe are the more casual fan don't look outside internationally. We're a little curious as to how this player was going to contribute to Angel City. And I think she has just really elevated her sort of importance to the team. in terms of even just in her versatility, because another thing that we witnessed in the couple times that we were out there was
Mhm.
how June Endo can sort of play across different positions and different lines on the pitch. And I'm not too sure if that's the energy they're going to roll with around this player going into 2022. They've got her listed specifically as a forward, but I think Jasmine Spencer on this preseason roster specifically being listed as a forward as well is something that
Right.
stands out a little bit to me. This was again another one of these players that we saw utilized that has a lot of great attacking skill sets, but Freya Coombe, similar to Tyler Lucy, wanted to keep these players lower in the pitch and kind of operate in those kind of outside back, wing back positions. So I'm a little curious if maybe there have been different conversations with a player like Spencer in the lead up to this regular season and how they want to utilize her moving forward. But I think listing Katie Johnson, someone who has typically
Yeah.
been a forward on rosters in this league, is specifically listed as a midfielder for Angel City. Look, this was one of the areas that they knew they needed to get help in, and perhaps they wanted to try to utilize the free agency period to do that. But I don't know if they actually were able to check that box off with so many of the top midfield prospects, whether it was somebody like a Dabinia or
Yeah,
a Morgan
exactly.
Gautrat, or even a Desiree Scott at this point, or a a Vanessa Di Bernardo or a Danny Colaprico, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't get any of those players. So to sort of sign off with Katie Johnson and obviously say, hey, you're going to be listed here. We're going to have to see how that works out. Now, I think maybe there could be a little bit of an advantage there. McCaskill and Johnson did play together
Right.
while in
Right.
Chicago, so there's not going to be a learning curve there. These are two players who have experience playing together, who are probably familiar with each other's movements on the pitch, and maybe this is perhaps a roll of the dice and a gamble to hope that these two can reconnect and create some good things in the middle third. And I'm hopeful with it too, because I'm a big fan of Katie Johnson and her play for teams across the league. So I'm hopeful that this will work out for Angel City. I'd like to see it, but it all depends on what Freya
Yeah.
has in her notebook and how she wants things to roll
Yeah.
out for them.
And honestly, who knows how that could go? Because as you mentioned, a Jasmine Spencer, it doesn't really matter how much that they're listed on the roster, right? Like these are not boxes that players are put into.
Yeah.
It's really they can be anywhere, and we've seen that because I imagine we will see Jasmine Spencer as an outside back at some point this year for Freya Coombe. I just do, but you're not going to change a player entirely. And with getting a Katie Johnson, yeah, slot her in the midfield. I bet we'll see her up top, especially if there's still injuries. We don't know the status of a player like Sydney Leroux at this point. Kristen Press, another one working back from injury. Kind of where their status is heading into this year is a bit unknown. But there are some important pieces on this roster, whether they're young or whether they're old, that are going to be big game changers and difference makers for Angel City.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think when we're looking in terms of their ideal starting 11, you have to look at who's going to be that experienced veteran that this team is going to rely on, who's going to be that young prospect that they're going to look for to come out there and make an impact immediately. I think we both agree that they made a series of moves to go out and get this player, and we're looking at Alyssa Thompson and what she's going to bring to this team in her rookie season. And I'm giving them a little bit of grace in this because, we had Alyssa Thompson on the show and we chatted with her
Mhm.
a little bit about this kind of whirlwind experience that she had that has led her to this moment to go pro, to be the youngest player to get selected, in the draft, coming out as a high school senior, going pro in NWSL. But she talked about one of the leading factors in making that decision was having multiple conversations with not just her family, but her team and other teams, plural, about what her pro season could potentially look like if she does make that leap while still navigating her senior year. And she said that education was very important to her, that she wanted to still navigate these two roads, both as a high school senior and as a professional, while still being able to have those experiences, have the experiences of a senior year, go through finishing school, have graduation, have, earning your diploma, going to prom,
Going
things
to
like that.
prom.
All of that stuff is very important. Big milestones for any high school senior. So I would anticipate that, yes, there's a lot to be excited about around Alyssa Thompson, but I also imagine and anticipate that this is a player that they're going to work in pretty slowly, at least
Yeah,
at least in this first half of the regular season. We might not see regular starts from somebody like a Thompson until perhaps post World Cup even. So I
yeah.
think because of that, maybe we're looking to the experienced players and who's going to step up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point about when we might see an Alyssa Thompson. And this year in the NWSL, it's a little bit different because Challenge Cup is not a preseason tournament anymore.
Yeah.
And that, as many negatives as there were some positives in how you could try out new things against real competition in the NWSL that mattered to something. But now that that's not really the case, I think it's a little bit different that you kind of have to look at for someone like Alyssa Thompson. You don't want to throw her into the fire too quickly. You want to make sure she's adjusted and getting there correctly, right, in terms of being able to do everything she can. I think for experienced veterans on this roster, there's a number of them we could have chosen. But for me, the biggest one that stands out is midfielder Dani Weatherholt. This is a player that defensively in the midfield was one of the most consistent players in 2022. She was always in the midfield. She was always the quiet, stable leader for this side and in Freya Coombs' side. She started every single game that she played. It was a player that played on both sides of the ball, right? Mostly she was a defensive midfielder in Dani Weatherholt, but now with a lot of the changes that are happening around her, whether they're getting someone like a Sarah Gordon in the back line or they're adding another Katie Johnson to the midfield along with a Savannah McCaskill, I think the stability of the ship for Angel City is going to have to come from someone like a Dani Weatherholt because she can also play those split passes and break lines with her incredible vision on top of the ball. And maybe even it becomes a combo, right? Someone like a Dani Weatherholt is going to have to take someone like an Alyssa Thompson under her wing, show her the ropes of being a professional and how important this game is and playing in front of really big stands in Los Angeles. So I'm excited to see what Weatherholt can do this year. I think the team's going to lean on her a lot.
I'm with you. I'm in agreement with you 100%. I loved when we're out in Angel City and we saw all of the signs specifically for Dani Weatherholt. I loved it. I'm with you. I would anticipate that this is the experienced player that they're going to try to rely upon a little bit. And that's not to say that they don't have a ton of veteran players that they can pull from and try to, get a lot of great stuff, whether it's on, off the pitch or in the locker room. But a lot of those other experienced players are making their return from pretty significant injuries. We're talking previously about Sarah Gordon. This is someone that they're going to have to, kind of work back into regular playing time, someone who has been off of the pitch already for about a year. That's a long time to get reacclimated. Kristen Press, someone who's also navigating, her ACL rehab. Sydney LaRue is a player that they signed midseason, and she's also coming back from injury as well. So Dani Weatherholt, I think, is a good player to sort of kind of keep the spotlight on for a little bit, as someone that they're going to lean on a little bit. In terms of spotlight, we've got international spotlights that we're going to have to take a look at because this is a World Cup year. So there will be multiple players likely for Angel City who will be gone for the World Cup. We chatted a little bit about June Endo, likely to miss some time representing Japan in the 2023 World Cup. We also talked about Vanessa Giles, but also Ali Riley as part of New Zealand, the co-host nation. So while Giles is with Canada, we've got Riley with New Zealand. So these, again, we're talking about players who they want to pull from for their experience. Ali Riley is one of those players, a veteran experienced player that Angel City has really looked to sort of, make sure that they are cool, calm, and collected on the pitch, has captained this team, is, a local to California as well, has gone on record multiple times talking about what it means to her personally to play on a team like Angel City as a local California kid. But these are players that are going to be absent from the roster this year. And maybe we highlight Gilles for a little bit, because this is a player that's going to be gone for an extended period of time, not just for the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to look at some of ththese individuals. I think June Endo is one with Japan, obviously, and Ali Riley, big missing pieces for this Angel City team. June Endo especially. This is one that really holds everything together. She's so fun to watch. But Vanessa Gilles, a player with Angel City that's actually currently on loan. She is overseas and she'll be playing there until the end of that season. So she won't even be back with Angel City until June. And then pretty immediately, she's got about a month and a half before she's then headed over to the World Cup. So I think a really good move personally for a player like Vanessa Gilles to continue to play throughout this offseason, throughout the winter in Europe, and get significant minutes over there, continue to keep her game up. But it's going to be a miss for Angel City not to have Gilles at the start of this season. And yes, it is a World Cup year, but the NWSL regular season takes a little bit of a pause from July 9th through August 18th, the regular season. That's when we'll see the majority of the Challenge Cup being played. And of course, the World Cup happening from July 20th through August 20th. So there's a lot of moving parts in between like June, July, August that we'll have to see what with Vanessa Gilles coming back to Angel City for a couple weeks and then going to play in the World Cup with Canada. It's going to be really interesting to see how the middle of the regular season goes without some of these players. I think June Endo is one of the biggest ones that they'll miss.
Absolutely. I think the only silver lining in all of this that we could talk about is when we go through all these previews, every single team is going to miss impactful players due to the World Cup. So it's not just Angel City, although they are going to miss some pretty significant key players there. Let's wrap this up a little bit for Angel City. Let's talk about the biggest burning question that we have for Angel City in the 2023 NWSL regular season. Quite frankly, it echoes what we presented to them last year in their inaugural season. This is a team that has become really one of the most popular teams, not just in NWSL, but alongside the world. We could see all of the excitement around Angel City, sort of making its rise as this kind of iconic brand, right? And we hear a lot about that. Again, we're talking about a club and its ownership group that talks a lot about high ambitions of being that $1 billion evaluation type of team, record-breaking scenes at their stadiums, multiple sellouts, shattering records for season ticket holders. It's all of the scenes that you want to see within NWSL and women's pro soccer here in the United States. But can this team match all of the buzz, connect all of the buzz around it onto the pitch and break through to the playoffs? Has this team done enough in their offseason to make sure that 2023 is the year that happens, Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest burning question. Is this a playoff contention team right now? I think it going hand in hand is in that. Can they break 500, right? They had 8 wins, 9 losses last year to go along with those 5 draws they had. But can they break 500? That get 8 and 8, right? Along those, get 10 and 10, win more games than you can lose. And I know that sounds so simple, but those are just the little things that this team has to look at coming into this year, whether they're getting players back or they're not, whoever they're losing for the World Cup, whoever they're not losing, the young players they're looking to mold. There's a lot. I think there's a lot of pressure on Angel City, but a lot of pressure they put on themselves to be one of the best teams. And the fact that they fell short of the playoffs last year, I think that hurt. That left a bit of a sour taste in their mouth, especially considering their expansion team counterparts in San Diego ended up hosting a first round playoff game because they finished 3rd overall. So I think that's something. It's a little bit of a monkey on the back for Angel City. Can they make playoffs? Can they finish above 500 in 2023? And you and I, we're gonna predict it, because we want to talk about the projected finish for Angel City in 2023. Burning question: can they make the playoffs, Sandra? Do we predict them to finish in playoff position?
I won't be surprised if Angel City mirrors a little bit what happened in 2022. It's impressive that this was a team who remained in playoff conversation. I won't even say contention, but they did remain in playoff conversation in 2022, going into the final couple of weeks of regular season fixtures. But they had some unreal like obstacles to get through. We're talking about a double-digit goal differential. They had to defeat, I believe it was Chicago Red Stars by like 16 plus goals. It was out of this world. So sure, there was playoff conversation around this team going into the final few weeks of the regular season. However, they still finished in eighth place, well out of contention for the playoffs. And I think this might mirror what we saw last season in terms of where they could finish. I think it could be anywhere as high as 7th. I also think it could be anywhere as low as 10th. I don't know if this is going to be the year that they break through the playoffs.
I don't think so either. I think that they just didn't do enough in the offseason. It seems like a slow roll game for Angel City at this point, and just their second year in the league. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for them, especially considering some of the moves and the changes that other teams around them have made. I think they'll be right outside of playoff contention by the end of 2023. But hey, only time can tell. Only time will tell.
We'll have to keep an eye on it, see if we're right or see if we're wrong.